What is going on, everybody? Welcome in to the Week 5 NFL Power Rankings show. We now have a month of NFL action behind us, so I really feel like we're starting to get a better picture of who these teams are, what they're going to be moving forward, which is what this is all about. Going to be a fun one to get into. But before we do get started, please do take a second to hit that like button down below. It really does help me out. A lot of people making power rankings out here on this platform, so it just tells YouTube you enjoy and to push it up the charts and push this video out to other NFL fans just like you. Really appreciate it. It's a free and easy way to support my channel. While you're down there, do make sure you subscribe if you enjoy my content. We've got studs and duds coming back this week. A NFL player review series that I've been doing on this channel for years, doing it every month this year, so that's starting up this week. And also make sure you check out my podcast if you enjoy my analysis. The link to the Fully Inflated Football video podcast YouTube channel is right here and in the description below. You can also search Fully Inflated Football wherever you get your podcasts and check out the audio version. All right, thanks for hearing me out. Let's go ahead and get started. At the bottom, where the Houston Texans are going to stay put. Just another non-competitive week against the Chargers. Not a whole lot to report there. Davis Mills not showing a whole lot of strides. So, yeah, they're in a tank off with the Chicago Bears at 31. A lot of Bears fans were upset a couple weeks ago that they weren't ranked much higher than this, and it's been more of the same, man. Struggling offense, lack of talent. This team is in a long, extended rebuild, and now that the easy part of their schedule is behind them, I do think those ticks in the loss column are coming unless we see Justin Fields figure things out or something on this team take some dramatic leap forward, but I'm really not expecting that. And then I've got the New York Giants at 30, and similarly with the Bears, the easy part of this team's schedule, I do think, is in the rearview mirror, and now with Daniel Jones, a beat-up ankle, I think this team is better than the two teams we previewed, but that's really not saying much. So much work still to do for these New York Giants in the first year of Brian Daboll, and they find themselves in the cellar-dweller tier. Along with our last cellar-dweller team, it is going to be the Carolina Panthers, dropping down 2 spots this week into this bottom tier. Woke up this morning a little bit late, around 10:30, after staying up late, catching up on these games, and was genuinely surprised not to see a Shefty bomb of the first coach firing of the year. Fully out of reasons why Matt Rule is still around here. We knew going into this Cardinals-Panthers game that it was going to be a borderline shit show with how poorly those teams are coached, and it was even worse than I could have imagined watching this Panthers team back. Just no identity, no consistency. It's a mess. You have to get rid of the head coach, and at this point, you're just sending a bad message to the players by keeping him around. So it's entered that time for the Panthers. And then we have a tier jump up to the best of the less. I think just better rosters, better coached, more competitive teams than the previous 4, but still teams potentially in contention for that number 1 overall pick and should be easy outs for the majority of real playoff teams. And that starts for me with the Washington Commanders. I do think they ran into a bit of a horrible matchup for them with the Cowboys, who are by nature going to force Carson Wentz into a panic because of how good that Cowboys pass rush is. So I think they looked a little bit worse this week than they will moving forward. And another team that Ron Rivera is absolutely on that hot seat. I think they're just waiting to see if this defense can wake up a little bit when Chase Young gets healthy, which should be within a couple of weeks. But yeah, Carson Wentz, back-to-back horrible performances. The offensive line hasn't been great. The defense continues to have gaffes and struggles. So yeah, it's just been a really disappointing year for a Commanders team here in Washington. The Seattle Seahawks, we can start to have some positive conversations here. They're going to jump up 3 spots. So genuinely impressed by Geno Smith. And this is a guy that was a 39th overall pick back in 2013, I think it was. A couple of rough seasons to start his year for the New York Jets. It sounds familiar. We've basically seen that for every quarterback since then. But He takes 6 years as a backup and sticks around the league, fights his way to an opportunity here in Seattle, and genuinely looks like a good NFL quarterback. Just really looking forward to seeing if he can keep this up and how long he keeps this up, and what does that mean for his future as a guy that's going to be 32 next year. Did Seattle find a legitimate quarterback here to the point where they can take those first round picks and continue building a defense around Geno Smith? Because you look at the offensive talent with the way these young tackles look, I mean, you got a capable offensive line, definitely room to continue improving it, but DK Metcalf is incredible. Tyler Lockett's still there. You got 3 tight ends here. You got 2 running backs. I mean, this is a phenomenal core around Geno Smith. Such a pleasant surprise there. But you also got to note that their defense is absolutely freaking terrible, and I still don't understand what Pete Carroll is doing here. But got to tip the cap to the play calling and to Geno Smith and the offense here for really making the Seahawks a competitive football team. Then the New York Jets. We get Zach Wilson back this week. Pretty good first outing. Some good, some bad for sure. But good to see him kind of rally, lead a comeback here. Starting to get on the same page with Garrett Wilson as that game went on, and I think this defense is slowly waking up a little bit, so I'm definitely intrigued. The Jets are back ranked to where I had them coming into the year. Really felt like this was week 1 for the New York Jets, and they go into Pittsburgh and pick up a win. So it's a good start to their season, if you will, now that Joe Flacco is taking his rightful seat on the bench. Then the Atlanta Falcons at 25, climbing up a spot this week. Definitely more of the same for the Falcons, where they are just a fun offense to watch. They scheme these guys up in really fun ways. The last 2 weeks, they have really featured Kyle Pitts more. Didn't show up in the stat sheet this week because Marcus Mariota continues to overthrow Kyle Pitts, which is frustrating for fantasy owners like myself and just for football fans that want to see Kyle Pitts become the freak of nature that he is. The defense just has a serious lack of talent. That's why I'm not taking them all that seriously, but they can move the ball. And they really woke up in the run game this week. If it was not for this offensive line clearing some lanes against a depleted Browns defensive line, then they would have lost this week. But hey, this offense can definitely find ways to move the ball, and it feels like it's a little bit of something different every week. I do want to see Desmond Ridder here pretty soon, though, because Mariota's been fine, but we've kind of had our fun here. Let's see what Desmond Ridder can do. That's just kind of where I'm at with the Falcons as they start to put some stuff together. Year 2 in the Arthur Smith era. All right, now we have a tier jump up to the 24th spot and beyond. And these are going to be we got to play these guys this week, really? Can't we play the Bears or the Giants? Like, no one's going to take us seriously if we beat anyone in this next group, but we're going to have to fight our ass off if we want to beat them. And that starts with the New Orleans Saints. Staying put at the 24th spot this week. Thought they actually played pretty well against the Vikings. You start to see Davenport and Cam Jordan wake up a little bit. That pass rush duo is really scary when those guys are on. They've got Paulson Adebo back out there, so I feel like that secondary is starting to click back in together. Tyrann Mathieu woke up this week. It's been a little bit hard to find him until now, so I feel like the defense moving forward is going to be pretty solid, and definitely curious to see what they do with this quarterback situation. Of the 4 weeks, I think this Andy Dalton performance was the second best of the 4 weeks, and that was without Michael Thomas, without Alvin Kamara. So, yeah, I think they have a legitimate quarterback controversy for now. I mean, until Jameis is 100%, but I do kind of like the idea of a game manager, Andy Dalton, with these playmakers and leaning into this defense a little bit more as opposed to the boom or bust approach with Jameis Winston. That's just not as sustainable, I feel like. So going to be a fun team to monitor, along with the Detroit Lions, the definition of a fun team. I mean, I feel like we say more of the same several times a week with this series, but Detroit, it's been this way for like 15 straight weeks going back to last year. They just are so creative on the offensive side of the ball. Ben Johnson starting to get head coach conversation this week for how amazing this offense has been. And I mean, no Amon-Ra St. Brown, no DeAndre Swift. You would think, based on how they were moving the ball in the first 3 weeks of the season, that would mean Detroit's offense stalls. No, they put up another 38 points this week. Jared Goff plays pretty well, but it really does just feel like the play calling and the culture here leads to good offensive strategy, if you will. And it doesn't really seem to always matter who comes in there. This week it was Josh Reynolds and big TJ Hawkinson week, career day for him. So, yeah, I mean, Detroit's explosive. They don't even have Jameson Williams in there quite yet. But my Lord, this defense is horrendous. Easily the worst defense in the NFL. Just so porous. And, I like Aaron Glenn. I have defended Aaron Glenn quite a lot on this channel, and I'm still rooting for him. But, they've got some pieces up front now with Hutchinson as a pass rusher. Malcolm Rodriguez playing pretty well at linebacker. They have some pieces in the secondary with Okudah playing well. At what point do you start pointing fingers at Aaron Glenn? I think that time has got to start coming. But in general, Detroit continues to be fun and scrappy. Then the Pittsburgh Steelers going to drop down a spot. But, hey, we got Kenny Pickett in there. That's all we've been asking for since week 1. Definitely can start pointing some fingers. Why didn't this happen sooner? He does throw 3 picks, but the ball didn't hit the ground once. And honestly, those 3 picks weren't all that bad from a tape analysis perspective. I'm really not worried about the interceptions. I thought he, came in and moved the ball better than Mitch Trubisky, got the receivers going better than Mitch Trubisky. So I think it is an upgrade for the offense. It's kind of what we've been saying. And hopefully defensively they can get TJ Watt back. I don't know. I'm running out of nice things to say about Pittsburgh. It's been a rough year. Same with the New England Patriots. I think people want me to come out and say I was super impressed by Bailey Zapp, and is he going to pull, a Tom Brady to Mac Jones's Drew Bledsoe here? No, I don't think so. I thought he looked fine. Just not a very strong arm, but honestly, Green Bay's defense gave him a lot of really easy looks out there with wide open crossers from clean pockets. I expect any NFL quarterback to be able to deliver on that. The defense is just a slow unit at the end of the day. Like, they don't have speed on that defense, and it does hold them back, I think. Good to see Jack Jones play well. It seems I was wrong about him, so I'll issue an apology to Patriots fans. But, yeah, they're just still the Patriots. They're going to compete. They showed that this week, but do they have the horses to finish games and man up against the better teams in the league? Ultimately, no. Okay, now we got a new tier up, and these are, I think, more legitimate playoff threats, I suppose. I just call this the in the mix tier because all these teams have so much to prove and so much to figure out, or players to get back healthy. So the Arizona Cardinals at 20, really just getting passed up by a bunch of other teams here that are actually showing growth, showing development, taking a look in the mirror and figuring out what's broken and getting better, or answering questions elsewhere. The Cardinals aren't showing anything new here. They are stagnant. It's Kyler Murray trying to make plays, throwing the ball down the sideline. It's a really porous defense that gets an occasional play by some good playmakers, but ultimately it's just not a very good football team. Very shallow roster, and they don't have an elite quarterback. They are poorly coached, and I'm just not taking this team all that seriously, despite going on the road and getting another win this week. Then the Indianapolis Colts, they drop another one this week. I do think, despite the loss of 3 ranking spots here, this week's Colts team is better than last week's Colts team. They are figuring some stuff out offensively. I don't know if it's enough, if it's too little, too late, but Alec Pierce has totally flipped the script after a rough week 1. You've got Jelani Woods looking the part out there. They're getting Paris Campbell going. Matt Ryan able to actually move the ball these last couple of weeks. So that's obviously big for this Colts team. I think they're going to hang around and have a chance to kind of heat up as the season goes on, as they've done in years past. So I'm not writing them off, but obviously they still have a long ways to go and a lot to figure out. Then the Cleveland Browns dropping down 4. This was a bad Jacoby Brissett week. He's kind of allowed this team to stay good, really, on the offensive side of the ball. He's played mistake-free football. He's played with accuracy. Until this week, he did look like a backup quarterback. So that is not something you want to see, knowing that is definitely an outcome for the Browns. Just a lot of bailing from clean pockets, some missed throws. And, yeah, you just can't be that good of a football team when, it's really just a good run game is really what they have. And no Myles Garrett there this week obviously hurt that defense. But yeah, they're hanging around. It's all about staying in contention until Deshaun Watson gets in there. Then the Denver Broncos at 17. And this is going to be their big drop. I haven't really known what to do with them because really for the majority of this month, they've moved the football. It was okay. They're just not finishing drives. They're making some questionable field goal and fourth down decisions. It felt like really correctable stuff. But now that we have week after week after week after week now evidence that this team just is kind of feels broken from a fundamental level. It's the second one thing goes right, another thing goes wrong. And this week, the offense was actually pretty good. Russ definitely had his best week, took care of the football. A lot of big-time throws in this game. They really got their plethora of receivers going with Jeudy and Sutton. But the defense falters this week. So it's just a kind of a mess with Denver. They're 2-2. They're a good football team, but I don't know if they're going to be too much more than that in the foreseeable future. Okay, then we got the Dallas Cowboys at 16. I can't believe I'm doing this, but a tip of the cap to Mike McCarthy. He did not lose this team. In fact, they rallied and formed an identity behind this Dak Prescott injury, and now with an offensive line that's shaping up, a defense that is ferocious. This is a team that, yes, they're quarterbacked by Cooper Rush, who has kind of shown that he can make some plays, but he's definitely not perfect. But they can win games with him when this defense is playing like this and the run game is like this and CeeDee Lamb is screaming open against the Washington Commanders. So, I still think they're due for a loss one of these days with Cooper Rush, but they haven't had that happen to them to this point. But the fact that they are getting these wins is huge because it's clearly building the team's confidence, something they desperately needed. They're eyeing getting their franchise quarterback back, and they're eyeing and in the process of getting some other pieces in here. You got Jason Peters out there now, Michael Gallup getting mixed back in, and we're getting closer and closer to Tyron Smith making his return. So definitely they can feel the reinforcements coming and the momentum is building, and Mike McCarthy's doing a great job. I was really hard on him the first week or two of the season, but it's been good. It's been really good. Then the Tennessee Titans, talk about good coaching. I mean, this team, you just can't count this team out. You never can. They've looked really good to me the last 2 weeks, even though they've suffered already 2 major injuries to their line, Harold Landry and Taylor Lewan on both sides of the ball. They have found their identity again. It is getting contributions from a million different pieces on defense, and it's just staying true to who they are. Outside zone, play action, but they've found the pieces that are going to help them do that. Robert Woods, Derrick Henry gets back going, Tannehill's getting comfortable, and hey, Chig Okonkwo, welcome to the NFL, baby. Big week for Chig. So, yeah, Titans are right back kind of how I viewed them coming into the year. Not a superpower, but you got to play a full 4-quarter game of football to beat the Titans, and they're gonna capitalize on mistakes just as they did this week. All right, then the Las Vegas Raiders. They really have not been bad any given week. They've been in every single game. They did not finish those games. This week was their best start to finish football game. Devontae Adams, Derek Carr on the same page. And yeah, I mean, this team has the talent. We knew this team was due to win a game eventually because they're not a team that was going to keep losing and end up with a top 5 pick, right? So they get the win. They're 1-3. Another tough game next week against the Chiefs on Monday Night Football. In the mix and certainly not an easy out. Then we got the Minnesota Vikings at 13. This is a difficult team to really find talking points about every single week because they're really solid, right? Kirk is really comfortable within this system. It's basically the same offense, more or less, with some new creative sprinkles that he's been running the last few years. So he's comfortable. Justin Jefferson's really freaking good. They get him going again. I will say Christian Darrisaw playing like this is a difference maker, although the offensive line in general, I think, took a step back this week. So I guess a little push and pull there, literally. Defensively, I don't fully trust them. They're fine. It just feels like a good football team, not a whole lot more, not a whole lot less, and it's a difficult team to find things to talk about every week. It really is. So they're going to gain a couple spots this week with the win and round out this tier of in the mix teams. Before we go any further, let me tell you about my friends at SeatGeek. Whenever I'm going to sporting events, I buy my tickets on SeatGeek. It is, in my opinion, the #1 ticketing app out there, and I've tried them all. You consistently find the best prices there. They have a great user interface that'll help you find exactly where you want to sit. And if you're going last moment, you'll get your tickets on the app within moments of your order. And now, by using promo code FranchiseGuy, you'll even save $20 on your first purchase. So if you plan on going to any sporting events or concerts, it's a no-brainer. You're already going to get the best prices there anyway. You'll save $20 on that price, and you'll support my channel in the process. So that's promo code FranchiseGuy on SeatGeek, and let's get back to it. Okay, then we have our next tier, and this is the hard maybe group. These are teams that I think have a certain higher upside than, I would say, everybody in that previous tier, maybe outside of the Cowboys and Browns, because their quarterbacks are not out there at the moment. But these are teams that maybe even have a lower floor than those teams. I don't know. These are guys that I think can be really good, but just have some also like major question marks, whether it's a smaller sample size of them being a surprise team this year or injuries. So anyway, let's get into it. The Dolphins at 12, dropping down 4 spots. Tua is out indefinitely. I'm not going to get into the concussion stuff. I have talked about it. You can check out the podcast last week if you want to hear me hit on that a little bit more. But yeah, I think this team can actually still play like the number 12 team in football with Teddy Bridgewater, and you obviously hope Tua can get healthy and get back out there because he's played well. But Teddy gets out there and just didn't look like he had the reps with the ones and wasn't familiar with the playbook and the offense. Clearly not as good as it was with Tua. That is why they're dropping 4. But I still trust this defense. I trust Mike McDaniel. And I trust these playmakers. So I still think the Dolphins can certainly keep their season more than afloat with Teddy Bridgewater. Then the Chargers at 11. They took care of business against the Texans. Good to see that. Definitely good to know that Jamari Salyer can at least play left tackle. Great week for him in his rookie debut against the Texans. So we'll see like how legit that is. But definitely a good start for him at left tackle. And yeah, Herbert's Herbert. Khalil Mack made some plays this week, and let's see the non Bosa / Slater Chargers play someone that isn't the Texans before we say everything's fine for them. The Jaguars at number 10, tough week going into Philly, rain game. I do think they were tested mentally in a way that this young team is not prepared to go into a tough situation like that. Trevor Lawrence, a couple turnovers with the conditions, and definitely a step back for the Jags as far as the hype goes. But I still trust this team. I think you don't want to forget about all of the good stuff they did in the first 3 weeks of the season. They're tied for first place in their division, and I think they will bounce back. I think it's possible that they don't, but I still am pretty optimistic about everything that we've seen about the Jags, and they had one of those weeks, right? So there's your hard maybe tier, a tough group to kind of analyze. But now we have more of a clear cut, I think, just playoff teams tier. These are, sure, Super Bowl contending teams, but maybe a cut below your top tier in the NFL. And that's going to start with the Rams, dropping down 4 this week. Obviously, week 1, they looked like shit. And the last 2 weeks, they've played 2 of the worst pass rushes in the NFL with the Falcons and the Cardinals coming into the year. And what we've seen now going against the Bills and now the Niners, we know this offensive line can't hang, and Matthew Stafford can only do so much when he's running for his life. And this defense is pretty porous. So they have flaws. I think it's going to be pretty difficult for this team to repeat. I think as long as they're going against good pass rushes, this offense is going to have its struggles. You are going to see Matthew Stafford make mistakes in those pressure situations. So it's a flawed team. I still think they will be good moving forward, but, definitely a downer week for the Rams. Then the Bengals are going to climb up a spot almost by default. I still think, I think they're better than the Rams right now. They've won 2 in a row. Burrow's played better. This defense is really balanced and very solid, but I still freaking cannot stand watching this team, and Zach Taylor he is getting he is getting Mike McCarthy real bad right now, like with Joe Burrow carrying him in the same way that Rodgers carried McCarthy for us all those years. This is one of the worst coach teams in the NFL, at least one of the most poorly designed offenses in the NFL. There's no inbreakers. They're not using their players in the way that they should. The run game is the worst designed run game in the league. They just don't understand numbers and when to, like, they don't even mix up their runs. They just run inside zone into bad numbers advantages and just run into brick walls. I cannot stand it. There's so much wasted potential with this offense. I didn't walk away from that win against the Dolphins feeling better about the Bengals, even if they're coming up a spot because the Rams look like crap. Anyway, the Niners are going to jump up 6 spots. This is obviously a team I felt very good about coming into the year because mostly this defense, I was saying, this is going to be one of the best defenses in the league. What did I have him? I think I had him second in the NFL. I'd have to go back and check, but was highly optimistic about this defense. And hell, one of the spots I was worried about was strong safety. And they have not just answered strong safety, they have found a hidden diamond in Talanoa Hufanga, who the hype train is, let's just say, left the station and at full speed. He is awesome at strong safety for them. So this Niners defense plays with rabies. There's nothing you can do against them because they just create chaos up front. They stop the run. They got these great linebackers and now Hufanga flying around. And you can't drop back and pass on them because they're going to hit you in every which direction. So this defense is awesome. And with Shanahan and Debo and Kittle and Ayuk, they're going to find ways to move the ball on you. And as long as they're getting these dominant defensive performances, which I think they can get fairly consistently, granted, the Rams have one of the worst offensive lines out there. It's an advantageous matchup for them. But yeah, I mean, they have a game script that's going to make it very difficult to beat the 49ers. Then we got the Baltimore Ravens at number 6. What a frustrating kind of outlook on this team because this team could be perceived as so much better. They've had so many high moments, especially with this offense and the way Lamar is playing. They just got to find ways to finish these games. They really do. It's really just those critical downs. I think their run game and ability to just get 2 or 3 yards is not where it can be for a variety of reasons. Maybe getting Ronnie Stanley back will help. Getting J.K. Dobbins continued to be healthy could help. But it's just execution. It really is. And a lot of people coming for Greg Roman's head this week. I'm not going to go there. I'm really not. I know he's an easy scapegoat, but there's a couple plays there. Bateman drops a ball that would have been a huge swing in the final outcome of this game. You get the 4th down, 2-point conversion. Lamar had a pair of options open, and just not a good play by Lamar. He drifts back, and it's straight up. Like, it was just a bad read by Lamar Jackson. They should have had that 4th down conversion. He ends up throwing a pick, which was huge because part of the decision to go for it on 4th down was if you don't get it, the Bills are stuck on the 2-yard line. Lamar ends up holding the ball way too long and throws a pick. They get the ball in the 20, and that's a big difference in this game. So I'm not going to put it on Greg Roman this week. I'm really not. The defense was fine. I mean, you hold Josh Allen and this team to 23 points. That's about as good as you can do. So just little offensive execution ends up being the difference in their inability to beat the Bills. But, I mean, they were right there. So I still feel pretty similarly about the Ravens as I do last week. And, let's move on. The Green Bay Packers going to drop down 2 spots. I have so many things to say about the Green Bay Packers. I'm not going to say them all in this video. So that is where definitely make sure you check out the Fully Inflated Football podcast. We're going to be really diving into that game, slot fest, nightmare against the Patriots, if you can really call it that. Incredibly lucky to escape this game with a win, and it was ugly offense in the first half. Rodgers deserves criticism for the first half, but was also like playing at an MVP level in the second half. Tough to know what to do with that, right? Because the recency bias, you walk out of that game and say, all right, that's why you're paying him $50 million. Good to know he can still play that way. Dobbs continues to build that confidence. Randall Cobb playing better in this offense. I got to apologize, for my Allen Lazard take. He's been really solid. Not a number 1, but he's a good number 2 out there. So, you walk out of that game and say, all right, the offense got going. That's kind of the biggest worry for this team. That's a positive, right? They struggled in the first half for sure, but good to see them figure stuff out. But God, this freaking defense, man, is infuriating. The thing coming into this year was their offense is going to take a step back. Even if all of this stuff works as the year goes on, their offense is not going to carry them in games, even though they have Aaron Rodgers. So you've got to have a top 3 defense if this year is going to work. And they're just coming out playing vanilla defense with horrible blitz. Like, even when they blitz, they're horrible designs, but they're playing off coverage. They're blowing assignments. They're terrified to run man coverage for some reason. Joe Barry is actively holding this team back. And if you think they can play like this against, quarterbacks that aren't Bailey Zapp and expect to win, good freaking luck. They have way too much talent on the defensive side of the ball to basically not have a top 3 to 5 defense. Their defense is fine. They're a middling defense, but it's so hard not to imagine this team losing in a predictable way in January, where the defense just doesn't live up to their billing. So, and I didn't even mention the fact that they are getting nothing from this rookie class. They spent 2 first-round picks on Quay Walker, who looks fucking terrible out there. Devin Lloyd's killing it in Jacksonville. That was an obvious pick. Devontae Wyatt got like 5 snaps this week. He's played 28 snaps this season. Christian Watson can't catch a football. There's 2 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks on a class that had to be an early impact, given their age of their quarterback, the impatience of the fan base, and how basically this team has been so close for so many years. It had to be, you had 2 drafts right there, really. 2 first rounders, 2 second rounders, and they're getting nothing from it. Shame on Brian Gutekunst. I know it's early, but it would take a rapid turnaround for those guys to show more than they are right now. And I don't know if it's going to happen. I hope it does. But yeah, really frustrating week for the Packers, even though they won. That was an embarrassing win, if you will. And yeah, more and more to talk about on the podcast, but that's just a little taste. Tampa Bay at number 4. I don't feel too much different. I think the offense is really good to see. Brady coming out, his best game. They get the receivers healthy. Like, this offense is going to be pretty damn good. They've got their players out there now. Defensively, I think they just ran into a buzzsaw. Patrick Mahomes, an all-time, honestly, just a very memorable all-time great quarterback performance. So locked in, the incredible plays, the in-structure, all of it. And no defense is going to be able to defend that. Patrick Mahomes on a perfect night. You can't forget the first 3 weeks. This was the best defense in the NFL. And even if I might take the Niners or maybe the Cowboys now over them, you got that offense with what should be a good defense moving forward. They're going to be right in the mix for the Super Bowl. And then the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, seriously, they don't have a problem at this point. The defense has been lights out. This secondary is playing great. James Bradbury was such a big addition for them. This pass rush, Reddick and Graham and Fletcher Cox, it's all working up front. So a huge tip of the cap to the defense. And then, of course, this offense is just freaking stacked. You have quite possibly the best offensive line in the NFL. You have Jalen Hurts playing great football. You have a top 3 receiving core in the NFL. And now really creative play calling. This team is borderline flawless. They might not have an elite quarterback, but as long as Jalen Hurts is a top 16 guy, this team could win a Super Bowl, and they're going to kind of get their full credit here this week after seeing it for a month and taking care of what I view as a good Jags team this week. But we are going to have a tier gap, and this is a familiar tier from the Week 1 Power Ranking show or the Week 2 show with the Bills and the Chiefs at the top. The Bills have had some injuries, they've had some hiccups, but still feel like with the way Josh Allen is playing this year and how well coached they are on the defensive side of the ball, they deserve, they go on the road and beat a really good Baltimore team this week. So I still think they deserve their credit in a tier of their own. And then for the Chiefs, I mean, we kind of already talked about it, but just such a legendary performance from Patrick Mahomes. The chemistry between him and Kelsey, I think, is the best thing the NFL has going for it right now, just as a baseline. Obviously, just the volume and how difficult those two guys are to defend. But the chemistry, they convert that big back shoulder over the middle of the field, tight coverage, but just indefensible plays between him and Kelsey. And I mean, just the play extension, the crazy Mahomes stuff. I just think this team has to be ranked number one in the NFL right now. The Bills have slowed down a little bit, and the Chiefs putting the pedal to the metal this week. So that's all we got. Really hope you guys enjoyed. Do make sure you hit that like button down below. Drop a comment where you agree, where you disagree. Make sure you subscribe here and to the Fully Inflated Football Podcast if you enjoy the analysis. And we'll see you guys soon for some more content. Peace out.